Nicole here with Job Hunt Solutions, and today's Thursday, which means it's viewer question and answer day. So I've received a number of questions recently about preparing for case interviews. So I think the best way to start and to look at preparing for case interviews is to sort of understand what case interviews are. Case interviews are used largely by consulting organizations and investment banks. However, they have become a lot more popular recently with all kinds of other types of businesses. This is especially true when an organization is hiring a recent MBA grad or even, in some cases, business undergraduate students. And the main purpose of using the case interview format is to assess your ability to be able to think through business problems. Now, sometimes these can come in the format of an actual business case. So some of these business cases you can find on Harvard Business Review, or if you're currently a business student, a lot of times these are the cases that you're used to working on in class. Or sometimes they can come across as brain teaser types of questions. And in a video that you can find right about here, I actually did speak a lot about how to approach these brain teaser type of questions. Again, the purpose being to really assess a person's ability to analyze and think through some business problems, and not just looking at the what, so things like profitability is down because sales are down, but also the so what behind that, and what are the implications around that. So knowing that this is the purpose and kind of what the case interview is all about, how do you prepare for it? Well, the first thing that you would want to do is make sure that you increase your business speak. Or your business acumen or your knowledge about what's going on in the business world today at a really deep level. So the best way to do that is to read or watch different business publications. So things like Forbes, Maclean's magazine in Canada, CNN Money, Bloomberg magazine or Bloomberg Online. There's all kinds of different resources out there. But the more that you read and the more that you watch, the more familiar you're going to be with all of the different sort of business issues that are plaguing the world right now and what those implications are. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you practice. So if you go on to, especially if you're looking at consulting organizations and a consulting type of an interview, the cases that are used, a lot of the big consulting companies like Bain or Boston Consulting Group, Deloitte, McKinsey, they're going to have sample cases on their website. In addition, there's loads of books that are available out there on, acing the case interview with lots of practice cases, etc. And a lot of times you're going to find different practice cases that are aligned to different consulting verticals. So as an example, it could be finance or human capital or even strategy and operations. Now, one thing that I would recommend, however, is that although you should practice, try not to practice too much. By practicing or over practicing for these types of questions or these types of interviews, you could get some fatigue when it comes to thinking through some of these business problems, or you sort of go down a particular train of thought when you're actually in the interview, and it may prevent you from being able to think about a business issue in a more creative or innovative way. The other thing that you really should make sure when you're preparing for these interviews is that you know your frameworks. Now, it's not necessary to know every single framework that is available out there, but just being familiar enough with the different frameworks that are available to you as tools when you're going through these types of questions, it'll help you to structure your answer. So some frameworks would include, Porter's 5 forces or SWOT analysis or even the 4 P's of marketing. And finally, during your preparation, seek out people that you can do mock case interviews with. So if you know of anyone who actually works in some of these consulting organizations, maybe has recently gone through some of the case interviews, or who currently conducts case interviews with candidates, ask them if they would be willing to sit with you and run through a couple of these mock case interviews, and they'll be able to tell you or help to guide you on how to structure and what your case interview approach is. Again, much like the practice piece, however, Make sure you don't do too many or work with too many different people, because you might get competing and conflicting insight and feedback on how you're performing. As a result, this could just become really confusing and really counterproductive. Now, in the case interview, one of the things that is being assessed is actually the questions that you ask. So making sure that when you're in this type of an environment that you are asking questions, and hopefully there's going to be somebody available to you for answering these types of questions. So you'll be assessed on, just the quality of those questions and the relevancy of them. In some cases, now just kind of to keep in mind, you may actually end up in a group case interview, in which case there are going to be representatives from the organization probably observing the interaction among the group. So you'll be asking questions amongst yourselves and trying to sort of come to a consensus or a solution together. But what the observers and the interviewers are going to be looking for is, is somebody going to be trying to dominate the conversation? Is somebody really trying to bully the others into their way of thinking? And this will really not bode well, especially in a consulting environment where teamwork is expected. Next, when you're answering the questions, there's likely going to be a math component, but just use simple math. Use round numbers and try to just estimate what those numbers will be. It's really not as important that you're going to be correct right to the decimal point. Also, make sure that you bring a notepad and a pencil. It's usually a better idea to have a pencil, because if you're writing down your thoughts and your notes, you may need to erase things out or move things around. So pencils are usually a little bit better for that, but it's entirely up to you. But when you bring your paper, make sure you bring some graph paper as well, in case you want to graph out any charts or diagrams that will help to support or to help you visualize what the issue is and how to solve the problem. And finally, make sure that when you're writing out any of your notes or some of your answers or your presentation notes, that you write legibly. A lot of times the interviewers in the organization, they'll ask to have back not just the case material, but also your notes, because they're going to use that as part of their assessment as well. Now, as a final thought when it comes to the case interview, yes, be practiced and prepared, but not overly practiced. But the bottom line is that it's not really about being right and being 100% on the mark. What's being assessed here is not the correctness of your answer, but the thoroughness of the thought with which you used to arrive at your conclusion. So the questions you ask, the ways that you sort of frame your answer and frame your presentation, those are going to be the most critical pieces, and that's going to be the basis on which you are being assessed. Thank you so much for these great questions. Please do keep them coming. If you like this video, please do press like and subscribe to my channel. If you have any comments or hints or tips on how to prepare for the case interview, please do leave them in the comments section below. If you have any other questions, any video ideas, or would like to collaborate, I'd love to hear from you. Of course, you can reach me on email, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever works for you. And for personalized advice, of course, come on over to my website. I'd be happy to help. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy hunting!